Shop focused on what may well be the next blue zone. It's an area full of sun and sand and strong community and all the elements that make for a healthy lifestyle. I am talking about the Azuero Peninsula in Panama. My name is Jen Stevens, and I'm the executive director or editor of International Living. Joining me today are some expats who know Panama well and live in several communities in this region that we are going to focus on. We'll talk about what you can expect there, what makes this region one of the world's top overseas havens and worth your attention today. And we will dive into the specifics with our guests, and then we will open it up for your questions. So if you have a question at any time during this, please feel free to type it into the comments below, and I'll be watching those and we'll get you answers. So let me start by introducing everybody. Jess Ramesch is our IL Panama expert, and she is based today along the Pacific coast, not too far from Panama City. But she has reported on the Azuero for us over the last decade. And so you'll find her most recent story in the June issue of International Living. We'll put a link to it at the end of this down here below. So hi, Jess.
Hi, Jen. Good to see you.
Next, we have Abby Drosner, who is based in Tennessee. She is a transplant from Florida. Abby and her husband built a home that's short stroll from the downtown and a short stroll from both the Pacific and not too far from town. Tennessee, I think you're about 3 miles, right, Abby?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Carrie, we have you here as well. You are based in Tennessee too. Carrie traded a corporate, this is Carrie Lusk Barnes, traded a corporate career in manufacturing for a slower paced life spent in the sun and teaching diving as you started. And I'll let her tell you her story in a little bit when we come back to that. But first, hello, Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Kimber was having technical difficulties, so will not be with us today, but it's okay because we have Terry Moe with us. Hi, Terry.
Hello, hello.
Terry and his friend Ben Clark have a podcast, a webcast really on YouTube. It's called Playa Vanau Show, which is filmed on the beach in Vanau. And so he's very plugged into what's going on there. And he and his wife and 10-year-old son have traded the, as you call the allergy-plagued life in Oregon for the relief of sun and sand on the Azuero as well. So as I said, we'll come back and talk with everybody. But I first wanted to start with Jess. If just to set the stage for us a little bit here, give us a little context. You know, Panama is one of the world's best havens for expats of all ages, but you don't really retire or move to a country per se. You retire to a community. And so, Jess, how do you think about the communities in this region? How do they fit into Panama as a whole in terms of what it has to recommend us? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the character of the place to get us started?
Okay, so the Azuero region, if you're on Google Maps and you look at Panama, that skinny isthmus that runs horizontally across your screen instead of vertically, and you'll see that big fat Azuero Peninsula just jutting south into the Pacific Ocean. And the places on that peninsula that we're talking about today are pretty close to the country's geographical center. So that means that you're driving generally at least 5 hours from Panama City to get there. You can also fly, it takes under an hour, but still for Panama, at this distance from the capital, from the international airport, this is almost as remote as it gets. And that's exciting because it's always been a little overlooked. And that's crazy because we're talking the beauty of Hawaii, the sunniest part of a sunny country, and a place with undeniably good surfing, and a true mecca for anglers. There's just so much on the Azuero Peninsula.
Very nice. All right. Well, so with that introduction, let's start with Pedassi first. I think that's kind of maybe the better known of the communities that we'll focus on here today. And Abby, I'll start with you. How did you end up there, and how is your life today sort of different from what it was back in the U.S.? Give us a little bit about your story.
Love to. Thank you, Jen and Jessica. So Jim, my husband, who actually does some speaking for International Living, we thought we were living the dream. We had a penthouse condominium on the Gulf of Mexico in Naples, Florida. We could watch the ball drop into the water every night. We had 2 Volvos. I ran a moving company for seniors. Jim was away working most of the time. He was in India, Ireland, Philadelphia. He was away a lot. And one day he came home and he said, you know what, honey, I know you love it here, but if we stay here, I will have to work forever. And I thought, wow, it's really a powerful statement. So he had already been looking at international living and he wanted to attend a conference. And we went to the Las Vegas conference, and that's where I met Jessica. And that conference talked about many places in the world, but we decided to focus on Central and South America, Ecuador, Belize, Panama. And we did some research, and even though Ecuador and Belize are beautiful places, Panama has the canal, which keeps the economy going and growing. And Panama has wonderful, let me repeat that, wonderful medical care, which is really important to us. And so let's see, we have all our doctors' personal cell phone numbers, and they actually answer them. So in 2014, then we attended the Panama conference. We decided, okay, Panama, this is what we're doing. We went back, we started our journey. We put the condo up for sale. I put my business up for sale. We rented an apartment in the city. One noisy weekend, Jim said, let's go visit Pedesee. And Pedesee is a magical, magical place. When you get here, you'll feel it. It's like America was in the 50s. You have time to actually talk to people, build relationships, and there's plenty of opportunity for expats to donate their time and their resources to all the different charities out here. And I think this was said before, Pedesee is the fishing capital of the world. We eat healthier here. It would be easy to make this a blue zone. The vegetables and the fruits are delivered to Pedesee almost every day. The chicken has no hormones, no antibiotics. The weather's beautiful. The sky is blue. We hardly get any rain. You can get outside and have lots of activities. There are lots of restaurant choices here. Pedesee has about 2,500 residents. About 350 are expats, Americans, Canadians, Germans, French, Israelis, all types of, all countries. And there's lots of ways to support the local community. You can eat at the restaurants. You can hire people to do your lawn care. Woodworking is a big thing out here. And pool care and pet sitting. Since I have 3, that's really important to me. And our first house that we built in 2016 was on the other side of the village, down a dirt country road, but you could walk everywhere. We loved it. But then Jim had a heart attack. And he said, I want to live closer to the water. So 4 years ago, we built this house, which is about 200 meters from the Pacific Ocean. And you do have to have an adventurous spirit to move to another country, let alone 5 hours from the city. So if you need to find something here, you could go maybe 6 stores an hour and a half away, and hopefully you'll find everything on your list. Probably not. But 9 years ago, we had to go anywhere from 2.5 hours to 5 hours away to get what we needed. Public transportation here is easy. We have a small bus, several small buses, goes from town to town. We have the large coach buses that go to the city. We have 3 small airlines that fly from Pedesee to the city. And if you prefer a little bit bigger plane, 50-seater, you go to Chitre and you fly to the city. And back in Florida, we would sit at 10 light changes on a 6-lane surface road just to get through an intersection. We didn't go out to dinner when the snowbirds were in town. Hard to get a reservation. Prices increased during season. Even in the grocery stores, everything was more expensive. I was working 5 or 6 days a week. It was a job I loved, hard on my body. Jim was away a lot. Back in Florida, we waited months to see a doctor at a cost of close to $300. Tennessee has a government hospital where we pay $2 to see a doctor. We also recently opened a private medical center here, and it's $17 to see an English-speaking doctor, and everyone loves her. And once a month, they bring out, like 1 month, it'll be a gynecologist, 1 month, a dermatologist. So that's really wonderful. And living in Tennessee with 3 adopted rescue dogs, we walk on the beach several days a week. We swim in our pool. Tennessee is a good life for both your body and your soul.
Well, I was going to ask follow-up questions, but I feel like you kind of you covered it so much. That's great. I mean, clearly you are enthusiastic about your day-to-day existence, and it feels very low stress. Would you agree with that?
Yes. At the International Living Conference, people always say to me, well, what's your biggest stress? Well, I have to really think about that because it's easy to live here. So my biggest stress, this is what I came up with in February, is wondering, will the cleaning lady show up this week? That's my biggest stress here.
Nice.
I used
Well,
to
I'm a little
tell my
jealous.
friends my biggest stress was picking out which swimsuit I was going to wear today.
Good one.
I love it. Well, Carrie, we'll come back because there's people are asking some questions. We'll come back to the questions at the end and come back to you, Abby, because I'm sure you'll have answers for some of these. Carrie, let's turn to you though to make sure we get your story. So you're in Pedesee as well. And you had said that you were looking for a slower pace of life and more control over your life. How did you land in Pedesee, and has it met your expectations?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, so I had always wanted to have a beach house. So I was working in corporate America. I had the high stress job, as Abby was describing. I traveled all over the world. And everywhere that I went, I was always looking at real estate on the beach, whether I was traveling for business or on vacation. And I'm from Dallas, Texas. One day, a friend of mine said, have you ever looked at Panama? And to be honest with you, I had not. She was a big fan of international living, so she was always reading about all of these different places. And she said, I think Panama sounds really good. So I started doing some research. I did research on Panama for 5 years while I continued to work and travel and look everywhere. And finally, after 5 years and falling in love with Panama just through research, I got on a plane and flew down with the intent purpose of buying a house, a beach house, a vacation home. So I flew down. It was Christmas of 2009. And by February of 2010, I owned the house that I'm sitting in right now, which is
Wow.
50 paces from the Pacific Ocean. So it was my vacation home. I visited it for a couple of years while I continued to work. But after a couple of years, I had a lot of changes in my life, professionally and personally. And I decided to go to the beach house to decompress, to think, to decide what my next moves were going to be. And the plan was to be here for 3 or 4 months. That was in 2012 in April. And I am still here 12 years later. So what happened? I got here. I was already a professional scuba diver. I had my dive master certification. And in my vacation time, I would come down, and there was a salty old ex-military gentleman that ran the Pedesee Sports Club. I will say he is no longer here, but at that time, he was the only dive shop in town. And when I would come down on my vacations, I would go diving with him or with his team. Well, when I was coming down for those 3 or 4 months to decompress, I contacted him. His name was Bob Grimes. And I said, hey, Bob, I'm going to be spending some months down there. And it would be really great if maybe you could put a package together for me so I could do a lot of diving, give me a little better price. And he said, I'll tell you what I'll do, Carrie. At that time, there were no tour agencies or anything in Pedesee. There was that place, and he had an activity center. He said, if you'll come down here, get certified as an instructor in diving, and run my activity center at the hotel, you can dive for free all you want. And I said, okay, Bob, that's what I'm going to do. So for $100 a week and all the free diving, I booked horseback riding, turtle trips, fishing from that activity center. And I took people diving and I trained them. Fast forward a few months, it's about time to go home. And I started thinking to myself, you know, my nervous system has really calmed down here. I feel really healthy.
Oh,
Might be an internet
we're
issue.
little, I know we have an internet issue. We said, we heard feel healthy. Carrie, I don't know if you want to try turning your camera off momentarily and see if that works.
Will she be able to rejoin if she has to click on that link
No,
again?
maybe not. You know what? Don't leave, Carrie. You see if you can come back in. In meantime, we'll move on and we'll come back around to the rest of your story if we can get you. Our tech gentleman here was saying that we'll have to wait for her internet to catch up. So fair enough. Jess, well, that's happening. Let's go on to Vanau. And you were recently in Vanau. This is the place that you talked about in your story. Give us a snapshot. What sort of person would find Vanau appealing? How is it different than Pedasea? And then we'll move on to Terry, who lives there.
Well, as you know, my article in IL Magazine really spells it out. And I want to say, Jen, that my Vanau experience was definitely a function of what I went looking for because, again, as I indicate in the magazine this month, there is so much. So you've got uber wealthy folks here, as well as your surfer types, and some of them might be uber wealthy too. Don't judge a surf bum by her cover. But I was so struck by just how easy the whole Vanau environment makes it easy, how easy it is to live a healthy blue zone type lifestyle, which we now know is as much about food, and don't get me started about the amazing food scene, but we know it's as much about food and exercise as it is about society, community, daily meaningful interactions. And I've had long conversations with Kimber, who's going to join us today, Terry, who's here with us today, about their experiences too. And no one was saying, oh yes, this is definitely a blue zone right now. We know it takes decades to document that people are living longer. But the wonderful thing is you don't have to wait. You can start living that way now, if your environment is conducive, like Vanau, because there are places in the world that are lonely even when you're surrounded by people, right? But Vanau, it's cool, it's friendly, it's beachy and sunny, and there aren't many built-in worries, and that makes it incredibly special.
Very cool. Carrie, we'll talk to Terry about Vanau, and then we'll come back to Pedasea since we got started. Thanks. I'm glad you're able to rejoin us. So Terry, you moved to Vanau with a school-age son. I think you still have a daughter who's in college up in the States. How has Vanau shaped your life today? And what are some of the things that you appreciate most about living there? Tell us how you ended up there in a little bit, just as these other guys have, a little bit about what life is like.
Sure. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Vanau's magical. It's absolutely magical. It has a very diverse community. It's very diverse economically, like what you had said before. But the people are awesome, and everybody treats each other with just amazing kindness. And to take a step back, when we first moved to this area, we were investigating Pedasea, and ultimately we bought a house in Pedasea. But one of the selling points for buying in Pedasea is I was talking to another expat who had lived down there and had been traveling down there for a number of years from Chicago. And he summed it up perfectly. He said, you have to walk through 3 feet of love when you get here, because people are just so kind and so nice. And I feel that, I've felt that vibe from Pedasea to Vanau to Conyers. There is just a kindness and a decency and a willingness to help that is unprecedented. We moved from the States. We were in the Western United States. And because of our allergies and because of the forest fires, we really had to look for something different because my son's health, my health, it was just miserable. And we're very adventurous, outdoorsy people. I traveled for work my entire life. And we wanted to find someplace just where we could kind of just get healthy again and figure out how we want to live the rest of our life. And my wife and I, we traveled to Costa Rica in 2014. On our trip to Costa Rica, we crossed the border into Bocas del Toro and had an amazing 24 hours in Bocas del Toro. And upon completion of that trip, we went back to Southern Oregon, and I started looking for places where you could raise kids in Panama. And because Bocas del Toro was as much fun as it was, I didn't feel like it was the best place to raise kids. And at the time, my kids were pretty young. So Petitsi popped up on the map, and we investigated Petitsi and just fell in love with Petitsi and Playa Venal. We drove around the country vetting other communities to see if this was the best community for us. And it turned out my son and I, we had an amazing trip, created all these just unbelievable memories. It felt and was so safe driving around the country. We really didn't have to worry about everything. And I'm kind of a security conscious person. I'm not, physically big or anything like that. So for a person that just wants to really enjoy life, this really, really fit our mold very well. Playa now has a ton of kids. The kids' the age range is from very little to teenagers, and everybody just gets along. There's a lot of multi-generational friends. It's a great place to learn to surf. It's a great place to practice to surf, and it's a great place to, if you're an expert surfer, there's just so many great waves around here. So, and the surfing vibes here are very different from California and Hawaii. It's very, very participative at all levels. And there's always somebody that's, willing to give you a tip or trick to help your experience go a little bit better. So we couldn't be happier, with the greater Playa Venal, Petitsi area. I think everybody's kind of said, I guess some similar things. Two quick things though. The food here is amazing. I'm not able to eat seafood, but the grass-fed beef and the hormone-free chicken is outrageous. And the cuts that you can get are so tasty and so, I would say, it's fairly inexpensive, for that quality of meat down here. And the cows are coming from the area. So you actually get to see the cows that you'll be friends with later on.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Let's come back.
But
there's a second thing. You had a second thing you were going to say. Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead,
no, it's
you're
fine.
good.
It's fine. It'll come up in the questions or something.
Okay. Oh, all right. We'll go on. Let's come back to Carrie. And Carrie, when you froze up before, you were talking about how you had been working in, teaching diving and that kind of thing. And then what happened next? That's where we lost you.
Yeah. So what happened next was I decided to stay because I felt so much better. I saw a different way to live life. Healthier, walking on the beach every day, sunshine, lots of great food, healthy food. And I can really feel a difference. I just got back from the States actually. And I could feel after a week or two in the States, I could feel it in my body from the food that I was eating there. And not bad food. It's just more processed, more sugar, more of everything, I suppose. And coming here, as the others have said, everything is so natural and clean. You just really feel it. But after a couple of years of working for Bob, he sold the hotel. And I struck out on my own and I opened a dive shop. And I ran the dive shop until COVID, actually. Unfortunately, COVID, I guess, affected all of us differently. Had a great time doing that. I took a lot of divers out from all over the world. People would come from just everywhere to go diving. And we have one little island out here. It's called Isla Iguana. And a lot of people, it's really funny though, people will walk up to me and say, yeah, there's not good diving here. And I say, really? Have you ever been diving here? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, well, why don't you come out and let me show you? It's fantastic. It's the Pacific Ocean. I mean, we have, now it's not a zoo. We don't have anything chained up down there, caged up. So, maybe all you see on that day is water, but that's anywhere you go. But the potential to see life is really incredible. Unfortunately, I did sell the business a couple of years ago. And at the moment, there is no diving offered in Petitsi, unless I'm having, a mood and somebody wants to go out. I still have a little bit of gear that I'll take people out. But yeah, life is great. People are friendly. One thing that I did invest a lot of time in here when I first came was learning the language. I will say, I think that's very important. I do think that a lot of people come down and maybe don't learn the language like they should. And I think that that is super important to connect with the local community and to also to really understand more about the culture. Until you can speak the local language, you're never really going to get as deep in the local culture as is possible. And so I would encourage anybody, no matter your age. I started learning Spanish at 46. So I had an older brain and I started learning the language, and I was just so committed and I just really worked at it. And now I can talk to anybody. And I mean, it's not perfect, but people understand me. And I think that that's really important. And it really does wonders for the relationship between the foreign people and the local people, because that is a beautiful thing here in Petitsi and probably also in Vanau. But I think that more of the local feel is in the Petitsi area, is that we're really well connected between the locals and the foreigners. There's not animosity. Everybody works together. As Terry was just saying, everybody helps each other. It's really a beautiful, as Abby was saying, it's a 1950s United States, people reaching out and helping each other and loving each other. It's really fantastic.
That's lovely to hear. And learning that local language is something we believe very strongly at International Living. And I always like to make the point that, as you said, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's the thing. You're living in a place, the places we're recommending are friendly. People get it. Like, their English isn't going to be perfect and your Spanish isn't going to be perfect. And I think there's just a graciousness that comes with trying, and
Absolutely.
And in addition, it helps keep your brain young. And, there's all kinds of other reasons to be learning another language, not just that you're going to be more integrated and better integrated into a community. So Thank you for making that point.
And if I could just add something to that, is the local people here, they want to help you. I mean, I became like the village project. Like everywhere I went, people knew that I was really trying to learn the language, and they were so patient and so helpful. And I sort of learned how to say, I'm trying to practice my Spanish. Do you mind? And they would just stop what they were doing. Nobody's in a rush. They would just stop and just wait and let me think, let me process, let me do that translation thing in my head. People here were so gracious and kind, and they still are, and they will help.
Yeah, that's great. That's lovely to hear. Before we go to questions, Jess, I wanted to ask you about one more place. You wrote in your article about Kutal. This was a kind of more remote option even, but it's very interesting. You want to just tell us a little bit about that place? And that's another sort of Azuero Peninsula option people have.
Yes, Jen, I really did fall in love with Kutal, and it's remote. And I'm not speaking figuratively here, this is where the road ends along the bottom of that fat peninsula, just jutting out into the ocean. And the town isn't as modern as what I've come to expect in Panama. I mean, I had internet nearly everywhere. Cell service was patchy, but the town is this green, breezy strip along this incredible segment of the tropical Pacific. And then you've got these little hidden gems. You can have a spa-like getaway at Sansara, or the fishing trip of a lifetime at Los Buzos. And for the expats who chose to actually buy homes in Kutal, they just got there and found they couldn't give it up, weren't going to give it up. And I'll say, for anybody who hasn't yet read the article, read that last box on Kevin's life there. And yeah, if I weren't still working and traveling so much, I would probably choose the super safe, super simple life in Kutal. I can see it. But if you need a little more for more community interaction and that blue zone lifestyle, I say look at Petosi and or Vanau. And if you're in Vanau, Kutal, like many other treasures, is only an hour away. So if you get to Vanau, don't stop there. Make sure you see Kutal on that trip too.
Cool. Good. Excellent. Excellent. I want to go to everybody's questions, and we've got some questions coming in here. One thing I want to say before we do that is that we are running our Test Drive Your Life Overseas competition. It is in full swing. I will put the link into that below this conversation as well. But in fact, we have extended the deadline for that to July 15, and the prize as the winner goes to Costa Rica for a month. So I just wanted to mention that for people who might be tuning in and thinking like, I don't know if I really am ready to go abroad or not. Well, we could let you help you test drive that. So we'll put the link to that below. Okay, so let's go to our Panama questions here. Let me see here. Now, pardon me while I click over to my other side of my screen here. The first one here is, so this person visited this area in 2021 and loved it. However, didn't seem to be a viable remote work location for him, sorry, don't know, due to power outages and internet fluctuations. Are things getting better there now? Abby, you want to start? What was your assessment of that? Are things doable?
Yes, we do still have power outages, but not for days, hours. And ironically, and you guys can back me up or correct me, it's usually on the weekend. When you can't get an energy out here. But we have Planet Telecom here. We've got Starlink now. Carrie's on something else. We have lots of internet options here, and we have a lot of people working remotely. In fact, Jim is currently in California. He's going to come home. He's been away for 3 months. He's going to come home. He's going to actually work from home. So he'll be doing training for hundreds of people on the internet. So the internet's very good here.
And I will say nowadays you can tether from your phone during that power outage, which wasn't something that we had before smartphones.
You're right.
And Terry, you're on Starlink, right? Is that what you said?
I am. I think Abby summed it up great. We are on Starlink out in Cañas. We do not have the fiber optic available to us out in Cañas yet. That is in Petosi. But I've found that Starlink works phenomenal. And my neighbor, who's also on Starlink, she does a lot. She's in the medical field, and she does a lot of webinars, very specific webinars. That's her career. And her internet has to be spot on. It cannot cut out for the size of traffic and for the size of business that she's doing. So between her generator and the Starlink, she has never had an issue down here, and I've known her for 2 years. So there's been times we haven't had necessarily internet, but for a person that's a professional that needs it for their livelihood, there's definitely ways to make sure that you have power 24/7 and internet 24/7.
Right. And Carrie, I assume you would kind of agree with this. And I know we've gone in and out here.
I was going to say, I've been demonstrating some of the little issues. Yeah, I would agree with what they've said. I mean, I am on fiber optic, and that's a relatively new thing for where I am. I would say 4 or 5 years ago, I was on a different system. It was much slower. But now, I mean, speed, just no problem at all.
Yeah.
But we do have the little electrical glitches, so.
Right. What about, another question, what about how easy is it to get around the area? Do you need a car? You want to take that, Carrie? You want to start?
Well, I would say yes, you need a car, but I don't live in town. I don't live in Petosi, and I don't live in Vanau. I actually live on the beach. It's called Los Destiladeros. And so for me to get into Petosi is about a 8 to 10 minute drive. So, and it's through rural country. So you know, I
You
could
need a
get a
car.
yeah, I could get a taxi, I could ride a bike, I could do a lot of things. And long before we all got here, the local people did do all of that. They, you know, they took a taxi or they walked. But I think as Americans, we probably need cars.
Right, right. Now, Abby, you said when you first, where you first lived in Tennessee, I don't know if you had a car or not, but you said you could pretty much walk everywhere.
We did have a car, but we walked into town. We have three, we call them chinos here. They're small grocery stores. You know, we don't have a lot of political correctness here because nobody worries about that here. Everybody just likes each other. So so we call chinos. They're owned by Chinese people and that's what they're called. And they're little grocery stores and we could walk everywhere to get everything that we needed. But yes, well, now we live outside of town. We definitely have a car. Some people do, as Carrie said, just take a cab, but I think you need a car also.
Mhm. Okay, okay. And I assume you do for Vanau, because that's even farther away. Terry, you guys, most people have a car.
If you're coming down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you can get by without a car, but it will limit some of the sites that you will see.
Mhm.
There's people are very friendly. There's a significant amount of rideshare that kind of goes around. There's great buses, but if you have to get somewhere, I would say, and you don't have a car, you probably want to get there before the sun goes down because people hunker down a little bit early. They go to bed a little bit earlier here, and there's just not the movement, that's out there. But if you have a number of a taxi cab driver in your phone, you don't have any problems. Or if you make a couple
Okay.
of really don't have any problems, people will help you out.
Okay. All right. The question that came in by email, how does Vanau compare to more famous beach destinations like Hawaii in terms of like cost and popularity? So maybe we could that's something we didn't really talk about yet, cost. So Terry, are you okay addressing that? Or maybe Jess, do you want to put that in perspective first? And then just in terms of what would a cost expectation be? And I know you in your story, Jess, wrote about this kind of, you could almost mistake it for Hawaii up front, right?
Yeah, in a photograph, you might look at the beach at Vanau when you're sitting at that iconic hotel and restaurant El Sitio, and you're looking at, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful views in Panama. It does look like postcards from Hawaii, but the costs extremely different. I mean, I want to say 25 to 33% of what you would spend to live somewhere, that we know is among the most expensive destinations in the United States, so like Hawaii. Terry, do you have any experience with being from California? You certainly can compare.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. We wanted that California, Hawaii lifestyle, but we just didn't have the budget for it. And we found that we could get all of that in Panama with a nicer community. The community just wrapped its arms around us. And you're right, it is just like Hawaii. It truly is. I would say that Playa Vanau is probably overall, and this is just an estimate, probably 20 to 30%, a little bit more expensive than Pedicee. And Pedicee has more grocery stores and hardware stores and stuff like that. But Vanau has the activities for kids, the activities for young adults, and it's an environment where kids are safe. I've never seen any of our kids out here get offered, cigarettes or vapes or anything like that. There's just a respect and a kindness, but yeah, it's significantly cheaper than Hawaii or California.
All right. I'm just going to stay with you for a moment, Terry. Question about what you're doing in terms of education. So you've got your son who's with you is a young teenager. Are you guys
Yes.
homeschooling? Are there schools there? How have you guys figured that out?
Oh, this is a great question. So there is a, was it primary? Yeah, I think it's primary. That's what K through or preschool through 6. There's a primary school called the Mangalare School in Cañas, and it's a beautiful school. My son started off there. He got to see monkeys every day. There's a troop of monkeys that kind of hang around the school and whatnot. And it's a great school to get integrated with other kids and other families and stuff like that. As he got older, now he's going into 9th grade, he attends an online school called EDU Worldwide. And that particular school, they have an office in Florida, they have an office in Austria, and they're accredited in both Europe and in the United States. Some of his friends attend an Oxford online school that is, I believe it's out of England. And a lot of his other friends are also part of EDU Worldwide. And he's found that school, in conjunction with, the outdoor activities, the language learning, it's been fantastic for his development. When we just went back to the United States, I look at his different friend groups, and I'm so impressed with the kids in Panama, with their ability to communicate with adults, their ability to make eye contact. They're not glued to their phones all the time. They still have them. They're still getting on, TikTok and YouTube Shorts, but it's not, the phone isn't their life. Their life is being with friends and surfing. So it's not, it's kind of an experiment, what my wife and I are doing with our son. But since we started it, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Nice. No, thank you for that. That's a really interesting perspective. I think it's very cool. Having just my last child just graduated from high school here, and at the time we thought, oh, we'll stay in the States for high school, and then about halfway through we were like, why are we doing this? So I think what you're doing is great.
Oh, thank you. And one more point, if I can make it too. I used to train young people quite a bit in corporate America, young managers, young people that wanted to become managers and really start a career for themselves. And I have met so many kids that speak multiple languages, like 2, 3, 4 languages. And it is remarkable. So my son knows Spanish a little bit, but most of his friend group can speak 3 languages pretty fluently. And it seems like in Vanau, the common language is English, but you also flex between Spanish as well. So if you're just learning Spanish, you're not going to have a problem down here. Google Translate is a great application.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another question from our attendees. This person says, I just came back from a trip to visit the Azuero Peninsula. I was concerned that the eastern coast looks to become developed and condoized in the near future. I went to the Sunset Coast, Torrio in particular. I'm curious to hear thoughts on this area and the Torrio Hills development. Do you guys know anything about that area?
I could only tell you that it's still quite remote and undeveloped. This is the complete other side of the peninsula, which is home to Cerro Oya National Park, which is one of Panama's most pristine, because it is one of the least visited, most remote national parks. Wonderful place. If you get out there, you can see my favorites, margays, ocelots, jaguars, and pumas, if you're lucky in that park. But you're not going to have the big town centers, the infrastructure. It is much more of a pioneer lifestyle. And I would say that the part we're talking about, the coast where you find Pedasi to Vanau to Kutal, there are more services, but it is still so undeveloped, even with everything that has come in, even with the new housing developments. This is still very much rural Panama. The guys on the horses with the cowboy hats, like, this is still the heartland of Panama and the cradle of folklore in Panama. It hasn't materially changed, and it's not going to be a big New York style metropolis, not in our lifetimes.
All right, good deal. You guys, before we hopped on here, we were gathering in the green room before we went live, and you were talking about how people communicate locally, that talking about expat groups and social groups. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Abby, maybe you could start and just tell us a little bit, like, how do you guys maintain and build your communities?
So there are several WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp is really big outside of the United States. So a lot of people in the US are like, what? That's how I was when I moved here. Call you on WhatsApp. So we have a Pedicy Community WhatsApp. And then there's the real Pedicy Community WhatsApp where you have to speak Spanish. Then there's our community here, Costa Pedicy. So we've got 4, just in Costa Pedicy, the emergency, one from the board, a social, and when you pick recycling. Every community here generally has their own to share information. And then we've got all the animal ones. We've got Spay Panama. We have Pro Animales. And I'm sure there's even more. I know Playa Venal has their own. You can get on and ask anything, absolutely anything. Yesterday, somebody was posting, oh, I found a dog. Can someone help me? You know, so that happened. But like Carrie has said, that's how I found my eye doctor. It's how I find a lot of things here. So
Okay.
it's really great. You could speak into it or you can type. And you reach
Nice.
a lot
And
of people.
Carrie, do you have anything else to add to that on the Pedicy front? Is that kind of how you stay connected with people as well?
It is, to Abby's point, we also have a community. It's like our resident chat group, which is talking about issues of, you know, where we live specifically. I will add a couple of other chat groups that we have here, and I'm guessing that out in Vanal, they've got very similar ones, or
It's the
or those
same.
people are included. Yeah. But we also have a couple of garage sale.
Oh,
And
yes.
so that, I mean, those are real winners. You get on there and you're like, geez, I'm looking for a juice extractor, and somebody's like, I've got one, I'll sell it to you for $20 or, whatever. So it's a buy sell, which is really great for moving stuff. So if you don't want to have to drive an hour and 15 minutes to Chitre to find that certain thing, maybe somebody's already got it and they're not using it or what have you. Oh, and the other thing is there's the Facebook group, the Pedicy Post. That's also a place where people communicate. So, and these are big communities. I mean, I was looking just yesterday, actually, I was talking to my niece who's just moved down here to live with me. And I looked at, I think it was the Pedicy community, and there are 420 people in it.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I mean, these are not like 10 people groups. These are big groups, a lot of resource to reach out and get help if you need it, or to share information if you have it.
Right, right. And Terry, same in Vanal, that's similar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the exact same. We have chats. We have group chats for jujitsu. We have group chats for yoga. We have group chats for wellness activities like ice baths and breath work, and it's amazing. It's a really it works really well down here.
Nice. Okay. Well, you guys, we are getting low on time here, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. But thank you so much for joining me. This has been really interesting, genuinely, in an area that I think a lot of people don't know about. So thanks so much for your time and your expertise. And if you are tuning in, please feel free to add questions below, and Jess will be watching those over the next few days, and she will get people additional answers. So yeah, thanks all of you. We appreciate you. And for those tuning in, if you are not yet a member of International Living, I just have to ask, why are you not? You can become one today at internationalliving.com. So again, thank you all for helping us out today. And thanks to everybody tuning in. I'm Jen Stevens for International Living, and we will see you next time.
Bye, thank you.